Professor Dennis Pilon, thanks for joining me. You have quite a fascinating career. You're a professor of democracy in a way at York University. Tell me about your job. Like, how do you define what your job is? And then how does that manifest itself on a day-to-day basis?
So I'm an associate professor at York in the politics department. I often tell people that my job is 40-40-20. So it's 40% teaching, 40% research, 20% service, which means that I spend considerable amount of time in the classroom, obviously teaching undergraduates and graduate students about elections and political parties and democracy and class analysis and stuff like that. Then I spend 40% of my time doing research. So that's, writing articles and books. All of my work appears on academia.edu for free. I see myself as kind of like a public servant in that sense, producing research that should be available to the public. And then 20% of my time is spent helping to run the university, helping to run the department. I'm just about to become the chair of the department. And so that means I'll do a little less teaching and a little more focus on, making sure that our meetings happen, and we've got plans for the coming year about how we're going to handle some new courses and students. And so, these three aspects of my job take up pretty much all my time.
So on one hand, you're an academic. You're studying, you're researching, you're thinking, you're sharing that knowledge through courses and so on. And on the other, you're an administrator, which is a completely different skill set. Which of the two is the most difficult?
It is interesting. My colleagues, we're all different. And some people just, they really shine in two areas, but maybe not the third. It's just not it's not their cup of tea. There are some interesting transferable skills. If you're the kind of person who can put together research for a book, that's a lot of juggling of different stuff. And administration involves the same thing, right? You have to multitask your way through different demands. Obviously, some people find it more interesting or enjoyable or have a particular talent in certain areas. And luckily, we're a very large department, so it means that not everyone has to take on the same administrative burden. Everybody's got their 20% of service. They got to sit on committees. They got to, do some stuff to help us make this thing happen all the time, reproducing our department, meeting a new group of students. But whether they take on one of the more onerous service tasks in the department, well, not everybody does that. It would really depend on what they want to do.
So other than doing interviews like this, what does a typical day for you look like?
It depends on what time of the year we're talking about. If we're talking about, I teach in the fall and the winter terms. We have 3 terms at York. Most universities do. And so I teach in the fall and winter. And then in the summer, I try to work on my research, go to archives, do whatever, research I'm doing and writing to get those publications going. So if it's during the school year, the teaching year, then get up, email. There's always email. Students are emailing us. Administrators, chairs, people want, you've always got forms you got to fill out. You've got things you got to read. Graduate students send you drafts of different things they're writing. They expect you to comment on them. And then you've got lectures to prepare, PowerPoints to go along with it. You've got assignments that you are helping students get ready to produce. And then, of course, the grading comes in, and you've got to sit back and work your way through and give students some feedback so that they can improve their critical thinking and their writing skills, or whatever is the focus of your course, whatever are the pedagogical goals. And then depending on how ambitious you are, you may take a few media calls, if people want to hear about the mayoral campaign that's going on or some political issue that's emerged, and the phone might ring and you'll do an interview for that. That's so depending on what day it is and what things are going on, you might be like, I got to bury myself in my grading, or I've carved out 2 days to work on this article. So any particular day will depend on what your main focus is for that day.
So your activities are primarily focused around being on campus and interacting with others in the department and students. Are there other components of your job that require you to visit outside institutions or go to conferences and so on? And how much of your time does that take up?
Yes, I mean, I think we are expected as academics, if we are research focused, to go to academic conferences and subject our work to criticism from other experts. Keep us honest, raise difficult questions, poke around the evidence that we have assembled, and that's great because people basically help you not make some mistake with your work by reading it over and checking out what you've said, make you think harder about what you're doing. So yes, some part of what I do involves going to a conference or two, depending on the particular year. I may be asked to come somewhere to make a presentation. I sometimes make presentations to different government bodies. I mean, I attended the House of Commons hearings on the voting system. I made a presentation to them based on my research. Of course, with lockdown and COVID, a lot of this stuff moved online. So I was able to make a presentation to the Yukon Legislative Committee on the voting system without going to the Yukon, as much as I would have loved to have gone to the Yukon. But instead, I just zoomed over to the Yukon. Same with British Columbia. I was asked to make a presentation on their Riding Boundaries Commission work that they were doing. So yeah, so some of what I'm doing involves going or being somewhere else remotely to interact with people about these issues that I study.
So your level of enthusiasm as we're talking suggests to me you like your job.
I love my job. I can't believe anybody pays me to do this. I mean, it's, yes, I had a colleague at an old department said, yeah, we know what kind of person you are, Pilon. You do this job for free. I mean, I basically made a job out of what I used to spend arguing on street corners. I grew up with a passion for politics, and now someone pays me to research it and attempt to try to tease out some of these big difficult questions that people are struggling with.
So one of our hopes is that people who are at the early stages of their career, or maybe even before they get to that point, are watching an interview like this and going, well, I want to be like you. What was your path? Because it's not like you go and take a course at even at university that says, well, I want to be just like Dennis Pilon. What's the path that got you started and led to where you are?
Well, it was a series of unplanned accidents. It just really was. It seems life can feel, pretty random at times. I've spoken with you about my past. I started off in broadcasting. That was my first career. And then I realized, okay, that wasn't a very good fit. And then I decided, you know what, I'll go live somewhere else. I moved to the UK for a year, and that was fascinating, And while I was there, I got to visit the Soviet Union and, do all these things that I wouldn't have been able to do if I had stayed in British Columbia, which was my home province. And so then I came back to BC, and I realized that the issues that I was interested in, I would need to get more formal education. I'd made a presentation to a Royal Commission on electoral reform back in 1990, and before I ever went to university. And I came out of it thinking, you know what, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to get involved in these questions, I'm going to need some backup. And the backup is going to be the education. But when I started my undergrad, I didn't think I would end up doing this. But as I was there, I thought, wow, here's a place for professional know-it-alls. Yeah, these are my people. I just sort of...
So let me just ask you a question. It seems to me, though, you said, yeah, I was moving around trying to do all these things, but clearly you had a passion for politics and public policy.
Absolutely. No, I always wanted to have a word in. It's funny, because we talked... we talk about things like voter turnout and why aren't people getting involved? And it seems kind of weird to people, like you and me who love politics, think it's really interesting. We can't understand why people don't have opinions. And that sort of reflects, I guess, our personalities. I mean, I grew up in a very working class household where we were encouraged to have opinions about politics and to, stand up to powerful people and ask them tough questions. That wasn't typical of other working class homes. And so I'm not surprised that, I ended up being maybe kind of an unusual person. But I benefited from meeting people along the way who kind of, tipped me in certain directions and raised the idea that maybe this would be an interesting path for me. And so then I just kept going, and I got very fortunate in terms of being able to connect with places that wanted me to come and be a part of their departments. In fact, two different departments that wanted me to come and be a part of their teams. So I count myself as being very fortunate to be able to do what I do.
So you went back to school, and where did you go from there?
So I did my,
Like you're
my BA
talking
and my
19,
MA.
yeah.
It was 19. I started my BA in 1991, January of 1991, and I did my BA and my MA at Simon Fraser University, and then I did my PhD here at York. When I finished, I got a postdoc at Trent, which was great. Trent's such a beautiful campus, and then I interviewed and I got a job at the University of Victoria. And so I spent 5 years at the University of Victoria, which was great. I mean, it's just a wonderful department and a great place to be. And I did a lot of media interviews when I was there. I really enjoyed doing that. But then this opportunity came up to come back to York, where I'd done my PhD, and join the team here. And it just seemed too good to pass up. And so I ended up moving back to Toronto. I mean, I miss BC, but it was a great opportunity. And so here I am at York.
And I get the feeling that you like to get up in the morning and go to work.
You know what? It's true. Please let me go to work. It's sort of my mantra on Monday morning. It's yeah. I mean, I wish everyone had work that they enjoyed, that they thought was important, that they felt like they were making a difference. I do feel that I'm helping students. And one of the things that I talk with them a lot about is career paths and how they can leave themselves open to trying as many things as possible, because that's really the only way you discover your passion, is if you can try something out. I mean, how do you know if something is a good fit with you if you haven't been able to see yourself in it? And I would love to see our governments take more initiative on things like the Quebec CEGEP system, where students coming out of high school can try out 3 or 4 kinds of jobs and careers as a way of trying to figure out what they should do with their lives.
Well, thank you for sharing a glimpse into your career and your path to what appears to be a wonderful profession. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.